I was 21 at the time when we were over there just last year. To think that we were the same age as those blokes who left their families and their loved ones to go and fight for our country, it made you think about what you were doing back home.
Dan Prigmore is now 22. He's a physiotherapist and coach of the North Fremantle A Colts. For 2 hours, twice a week, Dan and the others, blue collar and white collar, come straight from work, enough to field 7 teams. Football legends have been made here, and there's a swag of premierships as well. And this from a club that so very nearly was a casualty of war.
You've got to say it's a good-looking sporting venue, very atmospheric. Antique grandstand, Norfolk Island pines, and that's the Swan River looping over there. The Gil Fraser Reserve, it used to be the North Fremantle Oval, is one of the oldest in Western Australia. Older even than Stan Whipp, and he's been a fixture around these parts for most of his 76 years.
To me, it hasn't changed much at all. This oval's still the same as it was 110 years ago. The atmosphere here was all North Fremantle, pure and simply because they didn't go looking for good players. I mean, the players they had was what they used, and there was none of this building up a side to go premiers.
In 1914, well before Stan was born, Europe went ballistic. Empire called, and the North Fremantle players answered. 2 of them would be killed at Gallipoli. Another 9 died in the trenches of France and Belgium. More than 30 others were wounded. This war to end all wars would bring down a Kaiser, push an empire to the brink, and on the far side of the world nearly kill off a football club.
North Fremantle had sent so many footballers to the Western Front and to Gallipoli that they couldn't field a side after 1915. It meant that those footballers who returned didn't have a football team. When the time came to approach the league about that readmission, a series of events took place that were really makes you wonder whether they were really stabbed in the back, because when they made the application, they had a hearing of all the delegates from the other clubs, and it was agreed that a special meeting would be held a fortnight later. When they arrived for that special meeting, the constitution had been changed to remove North Fremantle and Midland Junction, who were also in the league, from the constitution. The delegates from North Fremantle were told, there's no case to answer here, you're not part of the constitution of the league. And so, really, while they went to war and were almost wiped out, they certainly were wiped out by the delegates of the other league clubs in Western Australia.
At this point, the North Fremantle story could have come to an ill-tempered end. But there were forces at work to make sure it didn't. History, community, commitment, and hard work. And people like Stan Whipp.
This hall wasn't here. So what you've got to look at is trying to have a side under the grandstand. Now what was happening is you didn't have the day where you got 7 sides, you had one side. If you didn't make it into the top team, you didn't make it because there was nothing else to play. So they used to have their players' tees and they'd have their keg under the grandstand, and everybody kicked in. They had a good women's social committee who did the players' tees, and they'd cook them in their houses and bring them down there in the pots because there was no facility to do anything else. And everybody contributed.
Okay, so we're going to take it over that far side and just go straight into some lane work, okay?
We actually have been probably over the years had thousands of people come down to this club to kick a football. But it's not only at that. I mean, there are people here up to 80 years of age who come down here on a Saturday, the old boot studder. You know, there's a person really in charge of every facet of the game, the timekeeper, the scoreboard operator. You know, it's an interesting avenue for these people just to express their interest in Australian football.
Survival is one thing. I suppose it's the past players that make this club. After they finish playing, they're always around the club in one form or another. Like myself, I've been here for 30 years. now president of the club. Baden's been around here for 35 years. So there's that longevity with players who want to put something back into the club well after they finish playing.
It's not just a part of my life, it's part of a lot of people that I know and the friendships I've made over all those years. You know, and when I look back, I think, crikey, you know, we're 60 years gone.
So the Maggies continue in the amateur competition. But what happened to their club at the end of the First World War is not forgotten, it's just remembered differently. April 2007, Fremantle. A woman sees her grandfather's name on the Magpie banner and bursts into tears.
Well, I felt a bit like crying myself, but we suddenly realised that here we are marching behind a banner with 11 names of dead soldiers on it, and we never knew anything about them.
November 2008, France. A travelling party from North Fremantle is in Europe to learn more about those 11 names.
I went into the trip thinking, you know, this is going to be pretty moving, it's going to be quite emotional, but once you get there, it just, everything you thought, like everything you went in expecting, it just paled in comparison.
When they left, they thought they were going on a journey just the same as what we were. And they got over there to be confronted by the devastation that they found. I think we all just felt very lucky and very privileged to go across and be able to experience that on a very minor note.
I remember reading my speech at the Menin Gate, and in the middle of my speech I was welling up to think that, you know, I was there honouring a player from North Fremantle who passed away, and it just kind of, the rush of emotions from the entire trip just got to me, and I was fighting so hard to hold it back. It felt life-changing.
Just really get the skills right so that tomorrow night it could be windy down.
I'd like to say it's going to last a lifetime. Obviously, it's only a few months since we left to come back home. That feeling and seeing what's happening around the world today, I really hope that it does last a lifetime for the entire crew that went across with us, because it was a huge learning curve for a lot of those boys. They've never experienced anything like that before, and I guarantee they probably never will. The emotion that everybody felt while they were over there was quite incredible. To see some of those guys who I've known for many years and I've coached in football for many years, to see their emotions compared to what it's like on the football field and what it's like when I've seen them every other time was quite amazing, and something that I didn't expect to see. So it touched them in a very special way. The memories that they'll go away with, I just can't see leaving them for a very, very long time.
Finally, consider this. If fewer North Fremantle players had been killed or wounded in the Great War, the game you're watching might well be North Fremantle versus Perth, or West Perth versus North Fremantle. And for those outside the port city, the prospect of 3 Freos in the waffle would be daunting indeed.